You know, I mean, if they'd have followed Paul McCartney, you know, if all the Beatle fans in the world had followed Paul McCartney.
The legendary Mick Jagger worshipped certain game-changing artists, and this secret list of inspirations is finally coming out. As rock and roll's most famous singer, his own incredible talent was fueled by others. He deeply valued daring musicians who blazed their own trails with new sounds. Let us now explore the first incredible artist Mick Jagger paid the ultimate respect to, and the stunning way their music echoes in his own unforgettable performances. 1. Chuck Berry. Before Mick Jagger became a global superstar, he was inspired by a guitar-playing poet, a man who told stories with his music, the one and only Chuck Berry. For Jagger and the Rolling Stones, Berry wasn't just someone they liked, he was a key teacher. His music was like a North Star, showing them the way as they started out and helping shape their lasting sound. You can't really talk about the Stones or Jagger's clever lyrics and stage style without understanding Chuck Berry's huge impact. Back in the early 1960s, in small London clubs, Jagger and Keith Richards first became friends because they both loved American blues and R&B records. Chuck Berry's music was a huge discovery for them. Berry, a black artist from America, was doing something new and exciting. He took the deep feeling of blues music, mixed it with a bit of country music, and added a youthful energy.
He's great. He was great in the beginning. Bill Haley was, so I mean, we're all just, I think, a cog in the wheel. We all got the ball rolling.
This created a sound that was fresh. It was rock and roll. His songs weren't just tunes. They were like short movies, telling vivid stories about teenage life, cars, girls, and a restless, rebellious feeling. For young Mick Jagger, who was still figuring out his own singing and songwriting style, Berry's way with words was an amazing lesson.
If you were alive and owned a radio in the 1950s, then you know about Chuck Berry.
Think about the stories Berry told in his songs. Maybelline was about a car chase and a girl. Johnny B. Goode told the story of a country boy who became a guitar star. Sweet Little 16 captured the buzz of a rock and roll concert. These songs weren't just sad blues songs. They were smart, funny, and easy to relate to. Jagger soaked all this up. He saw how Berry could create vivid pictures with his words, using everyday language and catchy phrases to make characters and stories come alive. This storytelling style became a big part of Jagger's own songwriting. Many early Rolling Stones songs clearly show Berry's influence, like the way they described things in The Last Time or created characters in Get Off of My Cloud. But it wasn't only the lyrics. Berry's guitar playing, his famous duck walk dance move on stage, and the pure energy of his shows were also incredibly important, while Keith Richards was the one who copied Berry's guitar style more directly. Jagger learned from Berry's showmanship. Berry knew how to entertain a crowd. He moved with style, he connected with people, and he had a powerful yet playful stage presence.
Well, we're happy, really. We've been working very hard since 1969 as a band on the road, and we've worked a lot.
Jagger was a natural performer from the start, but seeing Berry, whether on old films or hearing his records, surely helped him understand how to truly own a stage. Even Jagger's famous strut has bits of Berry's dynamic performing style in it. Berry had shown Jagger the power of storytelling in rock, but another musical giant would soon teach him where the deepest feelings in music came from. 2. Muddy Waters. Think about the band's name, the Rolling Stones. It's not just a cool name, it's a tribute. It connects them directly to the heart of blues music, and to one special man whose sound was like the foundation stone for their entire career. McKinley Morganfield, known to the world as Muddy Waters. If Chuck Berry gave them the ideas for their rock and roll stories, Muddy Waters gave them the raw, powerful soul of the blues.
I'd go in there and open me a bottle of champagne and then go to left and watch the TV and see the baseball game. So you don't see baseball over here, I watch the baseball game.
This sound was so important to them that it literally gave them their name. Mick Jagger's love for Muddy wasn't just admiration. It was a deep, almost spiritual bond with the music that shaped his life. In the early 1960s, when Jagger, Keith Richards, and Brian Jones were forming their band, their biggest shared passion was for the real, gritty sound of Chicago blues. In the world of Chicago blues, Muddy Waters was the king. His 1950 song, Rollin' Stone, a raw and poetic blues track, didn't just inspire their band name, it captured the very feeling they wanted to create. The song spoke of a restless, wandering spirit, a theme that would appear in their music for years to come.
Yeah, I miss getting rich.
Yeah.
I missed a lot. I missed getting rich. That was bad. But so what?
For these young British music fans, Muddy Waters was like a god. He was a direct link to the roots of blues music in the Mississippi Delta, a sound that had traveled to Chicago and been amplified with electric guitars.
Picked up the guitar after listening to a great old guy by the name of Son House. I know you heard of him.
Yeah.
And I became 17 years old.
Jagger's way of singing, that famous drawl and snarl that became his signature, owes a lot to blues singers like Muddy. Waters had an amazing voice, deep, strong, and able to show huge emotion with just small changes in tone. He didn't just sing words, he lived them. He could sound threatening, sad, or full of confidence, sometimes all in one song. Jagger studied this closely. He learned to use his voice not just to sing a tune, but to show attitude and create a personality.
Everybody asked about it when they would give me a story, So I said, well, I'm going to Chicago. I first went to St. Louis.
If you listen to early Stone songs like I Just Want to Make Love to You, a Muddy Waters song they covered, or Little Red Rooster, written by Willie Dixon, who worked a lot with Muddy, Jagger isn't just copying. He's channeling that raw blues energy, mixing it with his own English style, but always respectfully nodding to masters like Muddy. In their early days, the Rolling Stones saw themselves as messengers for the blues. They wanted to bring this powerful Black American music, which many people didn't know, to a larger white audience, first in Britain and then all over the world. They didn't just play blues songs, they introduced artists like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, and Jimmy Reed to a whole generation that might never have heard of them. When the Stones first toured America, they made sure to meet and often play with their blues heroes.
Come on in, fellas. Come on in, fellas. Can I buy you a drink? Can I get a drink?
A famous story tells how, in 1964, they insisted that Muddy Waters perform with them on the popular American TV show Shindig. This helped Muddy become much more well-known among young white Americans. Jagger and the band used their growing fame to help the artists who inspired them get the credit they deserved. The band's raw energy, that slightly dangerous, unpolished feel that made them different from the more pop-sounding Beatles, came directly from the Chicago electric blues bands led by men like Muddy Waters. Muddy's bands were powerful and had a real sense of grit and swing. The way the musicians played together, the back-and-forth style, and the sheer emotional power of their sound, all of this became part of the Rolling Stones' musical makeup. Muddy Waters gave Jagger the blues, but a new sound was emerging in America that would mix rock, soul, and pure funk into something irresistible. 3. Sly and the Family Stone.
Looking at a mirror.
No, say that.
I look at a mirror when I write.
Mick Jagger's musical taste wasn't just about the old blues or early rock and roll. He also loved new and exciting sounds. He wasn't always looking back to the past. He was also listening to what was fresh and bold in his own time. This led him to the colorful and energetic music of Sly and the Family Stone. When Jagger included this groundbreaking band in his Music That Moves Me playlist on Apple Music, it wasn't just a casual choice.
I went to San Francisco to have fun.
Yeah.
I stayed at a hotel on the floor, rolling on the floor for about 3 days.
It showed how much he admired their new ideas, their infectious energy, and their music that dared to break all the rules. Sly Stone and his band, which included men and women of different races, were a sensation, and their huge impact clearly impressed the leader of the world's biggest rock band. Sly and the Family Stone exploded onto the music scene in the late 1960s. They were more than just a band. They were like a vibrant, hopeful vision of what music and society could be. Their sound was a thrilling and totally new mix. Rock guitars clashed with funky bass lines, Gospel-style harmonies flew over psychedelic organ sounds, and soulful singing got a catchy pop feel. It was a joyful, rhythmic, and completely addictive sound that Sly himself called psychedelic soul. For Jagger, who was leading the Rolling Stones through a very successful period with albums like Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed, the pure creativity of Sly and the Family Stone must have been amazing to hear. One thing that likely grabbed Jagger was their amazing musical skill and the sheer energy of their live shows. Sly Stone was a brilliant band leader, a talented musician who could play many instruments, and a charismatic frontman. The Family Stone was full of talent. Larry Graham's groundbreaking way of playing the bass guitar, called slap bass, would change how people played the instrument forever. Rosie Stone added powerful vocals and keyboard playing, and Greg Errico's drumming was tight and funky. Their concerts were famous, full of energy, surprising, and like big parties celebrating music and life. Sly's funk and soul grooves showed Jagger's love for rhythmic innovation. But decades later, a completely different kind of beat, born from machines, would also capture his attention. 4. The Chemical Brothers.
Be hunting out these records that were like the B-side, second cut on the B-side of a hip-hop record, so it'd be the instrumental.
Decades passed, rock and roll changed, but Mick Jagger, always curious about music, didn't just stick to his old favorites. He kept his ears open for new sounds. In the 1990s, he found a new kind of energy in the booming electronic world of club music. The fact that Jagger put the Chemical Brothers on his Music That Moves Me playlist is very interesting.
Believe it or not, this might be the place, but it's not.
Yeah.
Not today.
It shows he liked electronic music, which might surprise people who only know him for classic rock. Tom Rowlands and Ed Simons, the British duo known as the Chemical Brothers, were leaders of the big beat music style, and their new and powerful sound clearly got the attention of the famous Rolling Stones singer.
I don't know, in the world we grew up with, we were used to people from all different genres playing together, and a festival was the kind of place where that would happen.
The Chemical Brothers became known in the mid-1990s, when electronic dance music was moving from underground clubs to become hugely popular. Their music was a strong and often loud mix of heavy drum beats, psychedelic sound effects, rock-style guitar riffs, often taken from other songs and changed, and mind-twisting synthesizer sounds. It was loud, full of energy, and made for huge speakers and excited crowds. For Jagger, who had spent his career delivering high-energy shows to massive audiences, the pure power and crowd-moving ability of the Chemical Brothers must have felt familiar in a way. What Jagger probably liked was the raw, pure energy in their tracks. Songs like Block Rockin' Beats. This wasn't polite background music. This was like electronic rock music for stadiums, a development of the rave party spirit into something bigger and stronger. Jagger, who understood how to put on a stadium show better than almost anyone, could likely appreciate the skill it took to create songs that could excite tens of thousands of people. Also, the Chemical Brothers were famous for their amazing live shows. These weren't just DJs playing records. They were full experiences for both the ears and eyes, with incredible light shows and trippy visuals that went along with their powerful sound. This focus on the live show, on creating a complete sensory event, would surely connect with Jagger. He was a performer who always knew the importance of putting on a big show and connecting with an audience in a powerful way. The Chemical Brothers, much like the Rolling Stones in their own field, were masters of the large-scale musical experience.
I don't know whether it's right to call them a group, because they're one of the few dance acts who've actually made a couple.
Jagger's liking for them also shows he was willing to accept, even though his own music came from blues and rock and roll, he didn't become someone who hated new technology or sounds. The fact that he would include an electronic duo like the Chemical Brothers in a personal playlist shows he was open-minded and curious about how popular music was changing. He wasn't just looking to the past, he was also listening to the music of his time, and maybe even the future. The Chemical Brothers brought digital power to Jagger's playlist, and another electronic act, this time from France, would also make a lasting impression with their unique robotic style. 5 Daft Punk.
My parents forced me to play the piano when I was 6 years old, and I was very unhappy about that.
Imagine the world of music changing, with synthesizers taking over from guitars and warm old sounds meeting sharp new digital ones. For a rock legend like Mick Jagger, whose music was so connected to natural bluesy sounds, to like electronic music was a big deal. And among the new stars of this electronic world, a French duo, famous for hiding their faces behind robot masks, caught his ear: Daft Punk. Seeing them on Jagger's Music That Moves Me playlist is a strong sign of their huge worldwide success and their creative genius. It shows Jagger appreciated music that broke rules and changed pop culture.
Well, it's the first album we're making as robots, so I don't think it's completely robot music.
Daft Punk, made up of Guy Manuel de Homem Christo and Thomas Bangalter, came from the French dance music scene in the 1990s. They went on to become one of the most important electronic music groups ever. Their sound was a smart and happy mix of house music, funk, disco, rock, and pop. It was carefully made and often featured voices changed by a machine called a vocoder, giving it a unique feel. What made them special and likely interested Jagger wasn't just their catchy beats, but their whole artistic approach. This included their music, their look, and the mysterious image they built.
And every time we come, I think we realize that people are...
One of the first things that might have attracted Jagger to Daft Punk was how incredibly good they were at creating a groove. Songs like Around the World, One More Time, and later their massive global hit Get Lucky are perfect examples of music that makes you want to dance while also being cleverly put together. They had a special talent for taking the best parts of funk and disco, styles Jagger himself had played with, like in the Stones' song Miss You, and updating them for a new audience. For Jagger, whose music has always been very rhythmic and designed to get people moving, Daft Punk's skill with rhythm would have been obvious and impressive. Besides the great beats, Daft Punk's new ways of producing music and their groundbreaking use of samples and electronic sounds created a style that was all their own. They weren't just making dance songs, they were creating rich sound experiences, full of catchy hooks, tunes, and surprising changes. This dedication to trying new things, to pushing the limits of what popular music could be, would connect with an artist like Jagger. With the Rolling Stones, he had always tried to grow and experiment throughout their long career. While electronic duos showed Jagger's modern taste, he still held a deep appreciation for raw, guitar-driven rock, especially when it came from an unexpected new wave of American bands. 6. Pearl Jam. When the raw, angry sound of grunge music exploded in the early 1990s, it felt like a revolution. It pushed aside the flashy rock of the 80s with its torn jeans, loud guitars, and deeply personal lyrics. Many people might have thought Mick Jagger, a star from an older generation of rock, wouldn't like it, and it was true that one of grunge's most famous bands, Nirvana, was too angst-ridden for him, meaning too full of anxiety and pain. But another huge band from the Seattle grunge scene got his praise: Pearl Jam. In a 1995 interview with Rolling Stone magazine, Jagger clearly said, "I was never crazy about Nirvana, but I like Pearl Jam. I prefer them to a lot of other bands." This preference gives us an interesting look into what Jagger liked in new rock music at the time.
He was really able to kind of focus the band and focus on the band and keep us focused on the music.
It might not seem like an obvious match at first. By the 90s, the Rolling Stones were rock legends, known for their bluesy confidence and huge stadium concerts. Pearl Jam came from a scene that was more about looking inward, with often dark lyrics and an attitude that was against being a typical rock star. However, there were things about Pearl Jam's music and style that likely appealed to Jagger more than the sometimes chaotic and desperate sound of Nirvana.
was gonna say, I think that's the first time I've ever seen someone shake a beer before they open it.
One important reason could be that Pearl Jam's music, even with its modern grunge sound, still had connections to older classic rock. While they were definitely part of the 90s alternative scene, Eddie Vedder's strong, deep voice and the band's powerful guitar-led sound often reminded people of 1970s arena rock. There was a big anthem-like quality to songs such as Alive, Jeremy, or even Flow. Even though the lyrics were often dark, the songs had a grand feeling and strong melodies that might have connected more with Jagger's own musical background. Pearl Jam wrote big songs with memorable choruses, perfect for the large venues they quickly started playing in, something Jagger knew all about.
Which was off
but Dave never heard them, so it's new.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, you've never heard these songs before.
Also, Eddie Vedder, as a frontman, had a different kind of stage presence than Kurt Cobain. Cobain often seemed uncomfortable with fame, but Vedder, even while dealing with his own struggles with being famous, was a powerful and intense performer on stage. He was committed to his performance and could connect deeply with his audience. Jagger, being one of the most exciting frontmen ever, would have recognized and respected that kind of energy and connection. Pearl Jam's live shows were famous for their passion and energy, qualities that have always been a big part of the Rolling Stones' performances. Mick Jagger's musical Love's show he had wide-ranging taste and a deep respect for realness and new ideas. From basic blues to cutting-edge electronics, he found things that inspired him. What do these favorite artists tell you about the man behind the legend? Like this video and subscribe for more rock stories.